All right, guys, you're listening to the Cinema Schmucks.
The Cinema Schmucks.
You're listening to the Cinema Schmucks. All right. We got today. We got Giovanni Irigoyen.
What's up?
You got me, the host, Miguel Rubiera. As always, I am the Omega and the Alpha, the one constant in this universe. And then we got Charlene Javita. I mean, she died, I guess. And so today, this is the second part. You guys don't know this. This is the second part of our Hugh Jackman double feature because just today, right? Earlier today, we did The Greatest Showman, right? Newest Hugh Jackman movie. It's a great time. Yeah, so, right? What Hugh Jackman movie are we doing, guys? We're doing Logan. We're doing Logan, all right? Quick general thoughts, just like, like a tweet, right? Keep it short and simple. 140 characters, right? Summation.
Greatest movie of 2017.
That's a bold statement, and I like it. Go.
Oh god. I think it does good as a standalone movie.
Mooney.
It does good.
I think, right? I get another bold statement for you. I don't know if it's the best movie of 2017, right? That may be a little too bold, but I think Logan is up there in the leagues with The Dark Knight.
For sure.
As one of the best superhero movies of all time.
I haven't seen that.
You haven't seen The Dark Knight? Oh my fucking god.
Jesus.
I'm gonna log through.
You're behind.
The Dark Knight. Oh, you're talking about The Dark Knight Rises.
Oh.
The Dark Knight was the
Oh,
previous
yeah,
one, 2008, with the Joker. Phenomenal. It was the movie responsible for legitimizing the superhero genre. Before then, like, people enjoyed superhero movies, but they didn't have a very legitimate reputation. I think the best movie before then was Spider-Man 2, and I think Spider-Man 2 is up there in the same league personally, but the public just didn't see them as serious movies. And then The Dark Knight came out, and it changed the fucking game. But anyways, yeah, we're reviewing Logan right now, right? Pour one out for Heath Ledger though, before we change topics like that.
May he rest in peace.
Moment of silence. Have y'all seen the video of his family accepting the Oscar for him? It's heartbreaking.
It's so tragic. Just seeing them accept the award on his behalf, and just everybody in the stands knows this is obviously very deserving, but just so tragic at the same time.
Oh my god. Anyways, let's move into. I personally think Logan is all about three characters, right? It's about X-23, played by Daphne Keane. It's about Professor X, right, played by Patrick Stewart, and it's about Logan, played by the one and only Hugh Jackman.
The Jackman.
The Jackman. He's jacked as fuck. Yeah. So let's talk about characters, since like many movies that we've reviewed so far, I think it's a very character-driven film, right?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
I think the plot is incredibly simple, and I always use this as an analogy, but John Wick, right? It's like a very simple plot, very high caliber execution, and like other types of intricacies that make it what would on paper be a pretty simple plot, an extraordinary movie.
But it's also it's with strong actors, so it's the way it's executed. It, like you said, on paper, it seems very simple, but because it's driven by Hugh Jackman and Patrick Stewart and all them, it does such a great job that you don't need all these confounding ideas to throw it into the mix to make an interesting movie.
Definitely. So, what did you guys think of the characters?
I think Laura, what was it, Daphne?
Daphne Keane.
She did a really fucking good job, especially since she's like 12 and she was mute for like half the movie, and her performance is stellar.
Yeah, exactly. Stellar.
I was very happy that she spoke Spanish.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I thought
she is from Spain.
Is she really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I heard she was like half British, half Spain.
Possibly.
That's interesting.
Apparently, she's a fairly well-established child actor in Spain.
That's wild.
Yeah, right? Like, she's 12 and she's more successful
she's
than I will ever be.
She's already got it going, and she's like, yeah, what are you guys doing with your lives? And I got shows
like, she's over here at, like, dinner parties shaming 40-year-olds. But anyways, continue. What did you think about the characters?
I really enjoyed if we're just, like, on a short, I think I really enjoyed the complexities of the characters between Charles and Logan, especially considering, obviously, they'd done so much work together that... considering that this was kind of a send-off, you understand the weight and the gravity of the movie. Yeah. And you can kind of see it when they enacted it in their characters, that you can really feel like, this is it. And
it's interesting because not only have the actors worked together for 17 years now, because the first X-Men movie was 2000 or 2001. One of the two.
One, I think.
Yeah. And so the actors have a lot of history together. They're very close friends.
Yeah.
But also, it works very well because the characters themselves have been together for presumably more than 17 years in universe. And you definitely see that dynamic. Charlene, continue with what you were saying.
I was just about to say that the chemistry between all three of the characters was really good. But I think the chemistry between Logan and Laura was really, really good. Especially like that scene where like he finds out that she can talk. So that was pretty hilarious. But also the small scenes that Laura and Professor X had together were also really good.
Yeah. I think, like you were saying, the chemistry that they have great chemistry, but it's not what I think is typically associated with great chemistry. You think of great chemistry, you think of like Archer, you think of like, like entertaining, like funny things. At least I do, right?
Yeah.
It's not a funny movie for the most part. It's got a couple moments, but
In a good way, though.
yeah,
that makes
it's
sense.
it's not like 12 Years a Slave type,
Yeah,
like,
where you're like,
no.
oh, man.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's still entertaining. It's just, it just makes you feel a different spectrum of human emotion.
Yeah.
Yeah, I went to sleep depressed. I was
But you were entertained.
Yeah.
All right.
I was entertained, but I was sleeping in a pool of tears. So it's like give and take,
I was not expecting it to have that emotional weight.
Right?
Like I almost cried.
Yeah, definitely.
No,
I did cry.
One tear. Like it was
Yeah.
one tear, and I was like, I can't believe.
For those of you who don't know, that is a ringing endorsement because she's literally a robot.
Just like her father.
Yeah.
Her father actually programmed her.
I think that's why the last couple minutes for can I spoil this?
Yeah, you know what? Spoiler alert.
It's been a year.
Yeah, like when he's passing away and then she says daddy. It was like
Oh, man.
oh god.
He held his heart.
Yeah.
in his
Oh
hands.
no.
It was like the first time I think they had held hands too, like
Yeah.
the entire movie. And
No.
like no,
She-
she held her wrist.
Okay, if you mean like they were consensually holding hands.
Yeah.
Consensual.
That
He's like, give me that hand.
sounds so odd, but yeah, definitely. Like I guess.
And I think Patrick Stewart is like the most tragic character in this movie. Well, I think it's arguable, right? It's definitely between Logan. No, they're all tragic. Jesus Christ.
No, I like
I
the touch
suffered.
that he probably he has the most powerful brain I guess
Yeah.
in the X-Men universe, and even that was susceptible to like
Yeah,
neurological
like
diseases.
everybody's human. It kind of goes back to in relating it to another superhero, Superman. Initially, his father, not like in the new movie, his father died of a heart attack, and it was always really interesting because it's like Superman, this invincible being, this basically a god walking among men, who can destroy anything, who can protect anybody from everything. Even he couldn't protect his dad from a heart attack. It's tragic to see that character like that because throughout, you said this is one of the first X-Men movies you've seen?
Yeah, I saw I think it was Origins. Like
That is literally the worst one. Like it's
Is it really?
it's an abomination.
Yeah, seriously.
I was probably like 10 when I saw
Fair
it.
enough.
Yeah.
It's because, like, considering, I think you were trying to say, like, considering Charles, that he's in such a debilitated state.
Yeah.
And prior to that, he was someone who was still upstanding.
He's an
I don't mean
upstanding,
that-
like good-hearted,
Really
like
helpful person.
joyful person who just wants to
Oh
spread
god.
it. Yeah.
I
And then
remember when
it
they were
turns out that
going
way.
out of the hotel. He was like, "Oh, I'm so sorry.
Oh.
I'm so sorry."
Yeah, it's kind of like similar to, like, seeing, like, Muhammad Ali not being able to speak, and you're just like, oh. Like, this guy is literally a poster board for, like, everyone, from people who are 50 to, like, our age. So it's,
Yeah,
it's,
definitely.
it's crazy to see them like that.
Yeah, so that's why I think in some ways his character is a little bit more tragic than Logan's.
Oh, for sure.
But don't get me wrong, Logan in and of himself, if I told you like his history, it's like, oh, he's had to kill a bunch of people and he's a good person at heart, blah blah. It doesn't sound that bad.
Yeah.
But like I think just the performance really brings it home.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Something that really like this movie starts off with a bang. Not in like a grand like, oh, a city's being destroyed kind of way.
Yeah.
But a bang in that, like, for the entirety of the X-Men movie history, they've all been PG-13, except Deadpool. And so Logan, who is very R-rated, in the comics especially, has never been able to really act
Come
on that.
out. Yeah.
I like that the movie was, because a lot of superhero movies has such a grand scope, like, oh, we gotta save the world, but this time it was like, I think because it was such a smaller scope, it could focus a lot more on the characters.
Definitely.
I appreciated it a lot more.
Yeah. At the end of the day, movies, not all movies, but I would say to generalize movie, it's all about the characters. It's about your ability to relate and understand to those
Yeah.
characters. But yeah, it starts off with a bang. Logan is. It very clearly sets things up for the movie, sets the setting and tone for the movie, where he's passed out drunk in his car, in his limo, because he's a limo driver now, which is like also oddly tragic. It's like
Yeah.
this man who saved the world. Like,
He's like, here is now like an Uber driver.
yeah. But so these guys are like taking the hubcaps off his car, And then, you know, he wakes up still just plastered, and he's like, "Hey guys, don't do that.
Yeah, please
don't
stop.
do that." And then they start beating him up, and he's like, "All right." So a little bit of backstory. This movie is based off Old Man Logan. It's a very famous comic, and in that movie, or in that comic, before the comic happened, years before, all the villains of the Marvel Universe got together, and they like all had this like grand scheme that actually worked. And part of that grand scheme is Mysterio, this like illusion master, somehow convinced Wolverine that he was fighting all of the villains, and then when he snaps out of the illusion, he had slaughtered all of the X-Men. And then he becomes a pacifist after that. And during that whole comic arc, he only ever draws his claws at the very end of the at the very end of the comics. And so because of that, a lot of people were like, "Oh, that's the direction this is going." But from the very beginning, it's like, no. Like these guys are kicking his ass, and he just gets up and like, oh man, like he's just ripping them apart.
Was it
like,
right after they like put the shotgun shell in his back?
Yeah.
And then he woke up and he was just,
and
it was game on.
Yeah, he's like he goes, oh, and he gets up and just
over.
starts cutting them apart.
It was
Like,
so satisfying.
and it's like it's really R-rated. Like you see, like he like uppercuts somebody with his claws out,
Right
and
through
the blades like come out. You can
Oh,
see it like
God.
in their mouth. It's like, oh no.
You're like, oh, so this is where this movie's going.
Yeah,
Like, we didn't even
it's
know.
very clear from the beginning.
It's so
It's
great.
like
They finally
Oh
unleashed
god,
Logan.
speaking of R-rated, it's like you don't even know what Laura's powers are, and so when the other guys from
the Ravagers.
yeah, they come and they get her, and then
So
pretty much the first glimpse of power you see from her is like her just throwing one of the guys' heads.
yeah. So the
Yeah,
the
I was
villains of
like,
the
oh,
movie
God.
come to so you know Charles and Logan and Steve Merchant's character. Damn, I forget is it Caliban. They're like you know in Mexico, like hiding away in like this place, you know, trying to save up money to like buy a boat and just live on the ocean. And they get mixed up with Laura, who's on the run from these like paramilitary organization. And so the paramilitary organization shows up to the complex that Laura is now with Logan, Xavier, and Caliban. And they go in to go after her after they've like secured Logan.
Yeah.
Like they have him like handcuffed or whatever. And then, like you said, she just walks out like holding one of their heads, like decapitated ass heads, and just throws it at them.
A little
It's
little
like-
girl, and you're just like,
And then it's so good. It's like this. Her claws come out, and it's like slow and like, but it's not slow
It's
like
almost
Logan's
adorable.
is. Because like Logan, like you see, one of the things that really shows how beaten down he is, like he tries to like pull his claws out at one point, and one of them gets like stuck.
yeah, and he's like,
He's gotta like pull
I
out
gotta
his bare
deal with
hands.
this.
Yeah, but it's not slow like that. It's slow like more like intentionally aggressive. Like
Yeah.
Is that just is him being weakened just like the result of him aging, or did he get? He mentioned he got poisoned.
Yeah, well, you see, it's never explicitly stated, but it's heavily implied that the adamantium coating he has on the metal coating he has on his skeleton, has slowly been poisoning him over the course of his life. But because of his healing factor, it's been fighting it. But his healing factor and his body are tired now, so they can't fight it as well.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, it's similar to like you know how the old saying where how does it go? You begin dying, or the moment you're born you're dying.
Yeah.
It's actually like after like the age of 24, your cells aren't able to recuperate as quickly. So then
Yeah.
it gets like similar to that.
Yeah, exactly. So instead of 24, it was like 240 for him.
Yeah, so he was pretty good for him.
Yeah, but yeah. So there was like a scientific breakdown of it. I watched a video on it from actually Matt Pat Game Theory,
Mm-hmm.
and he explained that like it doesn't matter how good his healing factor is because every time cells divide, the DNA like the genetic information that they have, they lose a tiny piece of it, and when it divides enough, it starts getting corrupted and it can't replicate as good. That's what old age is. So it doesn't matter how good your healing factor is. Eventually, you're not gonna have enough genetic material anymore
Yeah.
to replicate yourself perfectly.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so characters very interesting. I think the antagonists were kind of bland.
I almost thought that the main guy was Ryan Gosling.
Jesus
Oh my
Like a
Christ.
second,
God.
It's like,
like
this is like this can be every movie, isn't it?
She's
Every
just
movie you're
confusing
like,
She's just
I was
confusing
like,
everyone.
"Who's that?" And then I had to look him up.
You imagine Ryan Gosling being in Logan? I wouldn't have taken the movie would not have
Yeah.
been as good. You're like, what is this?
how dare you? Ryan Gosling is
He's
a great
great, but
actor.
I couldn't imagine him being the antagonist of.
Oh, the antagonist? Yeah, probably not.
I would be like, well, what's going on?
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I was like, oh, that's an interesting role for him. And then I was like,
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought the villains
Yeah.
weren't that prevalent. But to be fair, that's not really what the story's
This was
about.
like they weren't really focusing on them, so I
Yeah.
feel like
I
it's
feel like
fine.
if they had,
Like,
it would have kind of been a detriment. to
Yeah,
the overall
definitely.
story.
So we're kind of talking about the tone now, right? So I guess I might as well just flat out ask you guys, how do you feel about the tone?
Well, you know, I went to sleep depressed. So
Yeah.
it's- Pretty dark. Pretty goddamn dark.
It's pretty dark.
I mean, I saw it twice, and obviously the entirety of the movie is it's mixed with like somber and just rage, and it's very kind of conflicting feelings. But I feel like I think as a society, just watching films, we're not used to seeing films that are so dark, and feel because even though you said you went to sleep like crying, and even though I kind of did too, but I enjoyed how it ended. Like I wasn't upset at how they
It was fulfilling.
Yeah, for sure.
It felt natural.
But I think that was also circumstantial, considering the actors and then the characters as well, that they're just so beaten down that how they mentioned when Logan was speaking to Charles and he was trying to get him to sleep, he's like, we just both need some sleep. Kind of, I guess, alluding to like, they've done so much in their lives that it's just, they need to give in, like it's done.
They're definitely, if I had to sum up the characters in this, or at least Charles and Xavier in this, it would be tired.
Yeah, for sure.
Definitely, with one word, it'd be tired. So shifting over to action though, we mentioned it briefly when we were talking about Laura.
Okay.
Wow.
The action in this is great.
I love the I think it's one of the final scenes where Laura fucking jumps over Wolverine's back.
Yes, like that, like team up, like it's great.
Yeah.
Mother daughter.
Let's roll it back.
Mother father. Wait, no, not mother father. Daughter.
Father daughter. Bonding.
Let's roll it back a little bit though. So you're not really ready for it because again, it's an X-Men movie. They've set the opposite precedent, like kind of like hiding the action and whatnot.
Yeah.
But it's also not like really choreographed and technical, like for example John Wick or even like the Star Wars prequels where there's like super like fancy dancing
Yeah.
with
I think it's
lightsabers.
just the actors that do such a good job of showing emotion throughout the whole thing.
Yeah, well, it's also and also the choreography is still good. It's just good in a different way.
It's
It's
just
like aggressive and like
it's
it's
like
raw power.
Yeah, it's raw about like you notice it doesn't seem like you're not watching it and thinking like, oh, I'm noticing that these people are like choreographing a fight. Like it's so in the moment. Like you're just so focused on the emotion and the
It's like these
circumstance.
people are fighting to
Yeah,
survive.
to
and you
literally
believe
live.
it.
Yeah, and it's just so great, especially when you see Logan running in the woods and he
Oh my god.
gets that ounce of a.
We'll get to it. We'll get to it. But we actually failed to mention who is arguably the main villain, X-24, Wolverine's clone.
He did a
Was
great job.
Him?
That was
Like
his
you?
younger version of himself.
No,
His bigger-
I mean like Hugh Jackman playing
That was
himself.
Hugh Jackman, probably with a tiny bit of CGI, like
okay.
a tiny bit.
Yeah.
his biggest fear, his younger self.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Especially when he saw him coming down
It's
the staircase.
and he's just
he's
in
just
shock.
frozen.
Yeah.
He's just like,
What the
I
fuck?
can't believe this is actually
Yeah.
happening.
And I like that it was kind of like a representation of not just like it wasn't just young Wolverine. It was also like everything Wolverine hates about himself.
Yeah,
It was like that just raw animalistic killer instinct
that he
and
was
like,
trying to get over.
Yeah,
He
he's been trying to get
become
over
that
his whole
person
life.
anymore. Yeah.
So I think I think the villains were competent, and I think the action is beyond. Like especially when they're fighting, when Wolverine and X-24 are fighting, it's brutal. Like you
Man.
see, like he's not a match for him. Clearly, he's just fighting like basically to slow him down.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And like the only kind of advantage that he has is that he can think, whereas like X-24 kind of seems like a wild animal.
He's just a ravager. He's just gonna
Yeah.
keep going.
What did you think about those fights? Because I think those are particularly like the most brutal parts of the.
I think the choreography, especially where the final scene where they double up, is
Mhm.
really good. Yeah, I mean, usually I'm really picky about action scenes. I can't really point out what I like and don't like. It's just like some are kind of bland. But I think because the actors do such a good job
Yeah, you're
Oh,
like
just
emotionally invested.
putting emotion into it too. I feel like
Mhm.
you can really see like how
Yeah.
angry they
And
are.
you care about it. You
Yeah.
care about them. You're like,
Yeah.
I want these characters to
You
survive.
really feel like you're
I-
there, and then it's like their life's at stake. You're never feeling like, oh, this like something
Yeah.
bad might not occur.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
they make it very clear.
Yeah,
Like
no,
for
for
example,
sure.
like I had like this image stuck in my head where like X-24 and Wolverine are fighting and their claws locked and X-24 kind of just brings up his claw and just like up his arm and it's
Yeah.
like, that's such a strange and like really brutal like type of attack. Like and then he like picks him up and throws him.
Exactly.
It's like, oh my God.
It's kind of a situation where like you're fucked. Like,
Yeah.
Like it's such a strange scenario, but it's like you kind of see it on Logan's face. He's like he understands like I'm not gonna beat this guy,
Yeah.
Mhm.
and I thought that was really impactful just for the entire scene.
Well, yeah, especially when they first fight, the other one. I mean, again, spoiler alert, he just killed Xavier, and he knew that.
Oh,
And that
God.
was heartbreaking.
Oh, the scene where he's like having that whole dialogue with Logan when he walks in, and it turns out it's not even fucking him.
And the
And
worst part is,
the worst part is he probably still thought it was Logan.
Yeah, and then when Logan was like, "Oh, it wasn't me," when he was trying to like save him.
Tragic.
and it's
And
actually
you never find out if he like actually thought it was him or not.
And it's actually funny because Charles said earlier in the movie that he's like, I always know who you are, I just have trouble recognizing you. So it kind of makes you think,
Mhm.
like you're saying, did he actually know, or was he left with that?
I had
Because that
never
would just
thought
be-
about that, but that's trash.
Yeah, like wouldn't that be so terrible?
Yeah.
Where he feels like he's having a good, like, peaceful talk. Maybe he thinks he's gonna die already.
Luckily enough, Logan didn't have to live with that guilt for very long.
It's so awful though. It's not fair because it's like
Yeah.
I felt it coming on in the room. Just the shot that was going on, kind of over the shoulder, and you saw the shadow. And you're like, please don't let that be like X-24. Please don't. And then you just.
I didn't even know it was gonna be.
Well, yeah, because you don't. I don't think he's alluded to. He's like, oh,
Yeah,
we have like a
they're
secret
like-
weapon.
They're like, oh, we're
Just a
making
very
new
awkward scene.
Yeah. But oh my god, it's definitely filmed like very sinisterly. Like something is clearly amiss here.
Yeah.
And that family just gets wiped out.
It's so
Yeah.
tragic because when you see after Charles gets killed, you see the young son. He was just murdered, and it's
Yeah.
just like.
There was no chance. Like he had zero chance of getting out of
And
there
it's
alive.
so sad because they brought me up to make that connection with that family, just to have them slaughtered.
They even show Logan like helping them get their water back and stuff, and you're like,
And you're just
he's
like, why would they do this?
And then there was the shot where the dad after he saves Logan, but then right after he
tries to kill him.
tries to kill him. Because,
Yeah.
But he's so exhausted.
Yeah, because he's like.
Well, also
"Are you
the
fucking
gun
on
just
this?"
like ran out. There was
Yeah.
nothing in there. Yeah.
It was hardcore.
I would say, not every movie's perfect, right? We
Yeah.
know this. I would say just the fact that they kind of stopped at that family's house, though.
Yeah.
It was kind of
like-
contrived.
Yeah, I was like, dude, you already know there's like a million people following you. It doesn't matter how much Professor X wants to stay there. Like, you know
Yeah.
that it's gonna bring back.
But it's also like,
Yeah.
I 100% agree.
Mhm.
But looking at the other side, playing devil's advocate, people have mentioned that it's also like, look at how tired that man is. Like talking about Wolverine, like he probably just wants to pretend for one night as well that they're not in the situation that they're in.
They were just
And
in the
that's just a
wrong
very
situation
human
at the
thing.
wrong time, you know?
Yeah, it's fucked. It's fucked.
It's so bad.
But yeah, life's hard.
Life's hard.
Also about things being imperfect, I think the final scene where it's like all the children kind of surround the lesser villain. I was like, well, what? I doubt he needed that many kids to be like. I doubt that many children needed to be around him to kill him. Like, why didn't they help out? Logan fighting off X-24.
I don't think it would have helped,
No,
to be honest.
I think Laura's the only one that could have helped because she's immortal.
Yeah, those
Yeah.
kids would have gotten
The
slaughtered.
other kids would, yeah. Can we talk about the fat kid running through the woods?
Yeah,
It
I was
so
like,
good.
I
It
was
was
like,
so
what's his
great.
power? Wait, what was his power?
He
Endurance.
he does like electricity.
Oh really?
Yeah, he
Yeah.
can like shock people.
Okay.
You're like,
That was
run,
so-
fat kid, run!
You're like, how is he making
Did
it
you
bad?
see him? He had like a little Wolverine doll.
No, I didn't see
Did
that.
he?
Yeah, it was cute.
That's
yeah.
wild.
Great.
Yeah, so, I mean, to be honest, I feel like there's not that much specifics to talk about for most of the movie. I mean, it's very well done, right?
Mhm.
It's, it establishes a tone and runs with it, definitely runs with it.
And we definitely felt it the whole movie, so it's like...
Yeah. Actually, talking about action, I thought it was really interesting when Charles is having his seizure at the hotel.
Mhm.
I like that whole sequence. You know how Wolverine and Laura were the only ones that their body could kind of regenerate and like fight back enough that they could kind of move.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And it was just, I love how when like Wolverine gets in the room and the one guy that's frozen
Oh, man.
sees him, he's like,
It's... you know how terrifying that
It's
must
so
be?
You could
slow.
even see the gun shake a little bit from
Yeah,
his
yeah.
trembling hands. Yeah.
That's just so awful, and then you just see him just get impaled
yeah.
into the wall, and it's like,
It's like,
man, that's a bad way to go
Jeez.
out.
Yeah. So, was Wolverine always the strongest X-Men?
yes and no.
Well, I
Like,
don't know.
physically speaking, yeah.
Oh. Okay.
But there were, for example, Storm can control elements and shit. Like, literally, like, cause hurricanes and whatnot. So
Mhm.
she's pretty strong.
It's pretty useful.
X-Men. Cyclops is pretty powerful. Obviously, Professor X.
Mhm.
Rogue is pretty powerful. I don't remember if this is her power, but she has, like, standard superhero powers, like super strength to a degree, and she can, like, kind of fly sometimes. But she can also absorb mutants' powers and use them temporarily.
Oh, so like Kirby.
Yeah, she's
Yeah.
curvy.
I wouldn't have thought of that.
Yeah, so let's talk about the end, because I feel like that is the coup de grace of this movie. That is what this movie is building up towards. Every movie is building up towards the end, but this is like what this movie was made for, the end sequence.
Exactly the end sequence, or kind of close to it when...
Let's say just the third act.
Because I just wanted to mention the scene when Logan was burying Charles.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah, we
that
should
was-
talk about that.
It was... I wanted to cry just seeing the fact that Logan literally had no words.
Yeah, there's
So-
water and there's...
And then
There's water and-
and when he did that, I was like...
He just
Charles!
walks away and he's just beating the tree. I liked how they framed that,
Yeah.
but I also think it's kind of weird that it's such an intimate and like sad moment. But the way they framed it, it like just made it levity. You're seeing it from such a distance. He's just like beating the truck.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Kinda takes
Why
away from
did
the
he
top
say there's water?
I think he was just starting a eulogy, like he's in
Okay.
nature type thing.
Okay.
He was starting a
He
eulogy,
just
but
could
he
have
just
finished
couldn't
his
finish
sentence.
it.
He's gone, and then you have the fact that Laura tried to connect with him.
Yeah.
Mhm.
She didn't consensually touch his hand.
He's like, I'm not ready for this.
I like
like
the
this is-
Laura's eulogy for
Yeah.
Logan was the scene.
From Shane. Yeah,
Was that the movie?
Shane.
I just knew it was the cowboy movie.
yeah. It's
Cowboy.
a man's gotta be what he is. He can't change what he is, etc., etc. Yeah. So eventually, Wolverine does bring Laura to, and they meet up with the other kids, and they're trying to get over the Canadian border, right?
Canada.
Fucking Canada, man. And Logan passes out after a very like tense, like moral discussion. She's kind of like, we don't even want your help anymore, And he passes out. He's sleeping, and then they leave while he's asleep. And he wakes up, and they're gone. However, he sees the drones and he sees the jeeps going. The Ravagers are going after them, right? How did y'all feel about like everything that happens after that?
I think prior to that, when Laura was like, why won't you come with us, And then he was like, oh, just bad shit happens to the people that I care about. And then she was like, oh, well, I should be fine then.
That
like,
was brutal.
Damn.
Oh man, why you gotta say that?
Oh, ay Dios.
I was like, oh god. I think that was the part of that whole act that stood out to me the most.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, I think Logan's like any of us, right? Just bear with me.
Okay.
I
okay.
wish.
I want to see how you connect us to a
Yeah.
to
All right.
an adamantium skeleton
Right?
regenerating.
You got a man who was in the past movies, he's loved people, and obviously he's seen them taken away. He's like all of us. We're all afraid to love. Because we're afraid that our family members are going to be
Are
murdered.
you okay?
Do you need a hug, dog?
Yeah.
Not right now. But no, I was very excited after, obviously not in that moment that she was just roasted him.
That was brutal.
Yeah. I did not expect her to have that wit after being
Right.
locked up and
I
pretty much
just
having
loved it.
barely any social interaction.
But just seeing that he starts running in the forest.
Oh my god.
And his game on.
That the second he takes so there's a serum that boosts mutant abilities, right? And for most of the movie, Logan is very against it. It doesn't come up too much, but it comes out once or
Yeah,
twice, and
a
he's
little
like,
bit.
"That shit'll kill you." When
Yeah.
Laura brings it up or some shit, and then you just know that he knows that in his current state he can't save those kids,
Yeah.
and so he takes that shot, and it's just he takes the shot, and it just basically cuts to him just full tilt sprint
Oh,
going
yeah,
after the
that's so-
Ravagers.
So great.
And I don't know about you guys, but I was in the theater. I was like,
Yeah,
yeah!
seriously, it
I was
was-
so hyped. And
Oh, man.
before he even attacks anybody, you hear, it's very quiet, but I've seen the movie 3 times now,
Oh, yeah.
and I know for a fact it's there. You hear one of the soldiers yell, "Oh shit, it's Wolverine!"
Can you imagine?
It's great. I heard it the first time. I was like, "Did y'all hear that?" And they're like, "What you talking
It's like,
about?"
what you talking about, man?
No, that shit was there. And he just tears through them, and it's that's the scene that everybody wanted from
That's what
Wolverine.
we wanted to see. Yeah.
That's what it was. It was so brutal, and and he finishes, and he just looks up and just.
You see his freaking vein, you can literally, just if you touch it, that thing is getting sliced.
Yeah, and then the end sequence and all that stuff. I liked how the main villain, the evil scientist, right? He's giving his monologue. And he's the main villain.
He's the one, calculating everything.
I always
He's
saw
like,
the
orchestrating everything.
Yeah, you
rip-off Ryan Gosling.
Yeah. Hey,
Well, I
Rip
think
Off
he
Ryan
can-
Gosling did an okay job.
Yeah,
right?
Rip Off Ryan Gosling was good.
Oh,
He's
man.
also
He's pretty cute.
Yeah.
I hope he doesn't see this.
But yeah, I like how he you see like, again, how broken down Logan is in that he hates guns, but he just totally like gives up his beliefs out of necessity, pretty much, because he's just like, boom, you're dead. All right.
And also, he's just so tired.
Yeah.
It's like the parallel to Indiana Jones in the scene where Harrison
yeah.
Ford was just so tired.
Yeah.
Shooting those scenes that there was no point. He was supposed to use his lasso, right?
Yeah, it was supposed to be a drawn out fight.
Yeah.
We're talking about in Raiders of the Lost Ark when Indiana Jones is like running through like a bazaar in like the Middle East, and like this one guy, one of the villains, like steps out in front of him with a scimitar, and he's like doing a bunch of tricks and shit, and Harrison Ford just like,
and it's over, and that's it. But it's become like one of the most iconic scenes.
Yeah,
And like,
it's pretty great. But yeah, it is kind of like that.
yeah,
For sure.
it was amazing. But you know, this time it was like it shows him getting shot in the neck.
Was it the neck?
I saw it. It was the neck, and I was like,
The neck's not a fun place to get
I
shot.
was like,
though.
I've been punched in the neck.
What how do you guys feel about how they handled Logan's death? Because that is like,
I thought they did it right.
yeah.
I like usually in certain movies like that, you're kind of left with like a bad taste in your mouth, and I mean I really feel that with this one, especially considering the whole direction it was going, and you can tell he was just beaten down the entire movie. It was fitting, to say the least.
Yeah. Oftentimes I'm like, I don't like movies having sequels. Some movies it's befitting, but a lot of movies it's like that
It's
story's done.
unnecessary.
It doesn't need it.
Yeah.
Movies suffer when you spend 20, 30 minutes in one movie trying to set up the next movie. They suffer for it. They suffer a lot, in my opinion. But I think a sequel to this would feel pretty organic. And honestly, like we mentioned before, I really like Daphne Keane. I'm very excited to see what they do with that. Hopefully they continue the trend of doing it justice and whatnot.
Yeah.
I think James Mangold is definitely someone that they should keep in mind. Not even necessarily for that movie, but just for future X-Men movies in general. I think he has a good understanding of it.
It's crazy. I feel like as of late, there's been a lot of really great child actors and actresses out there.
Yeah, like you look at Stranger Things, you look at It. Yeah, for sure. I think it's maybe that children are exposed to more. Not all kids, but in general, they have access to more information.
The
and
more
since
understanding, so it's not like, oh, they're just a child. No, it's like
they mature more quickly.
They're already kind of like, they already know what's going on.
Yeah.
And everything.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you guys want to see it go?
I don't know. I'm not entirely sure where it would go. I feel like they can do some damage with it, considering it's Fox.
Yeah.
But Disney
Disney acquired Fox.
Yeah.
Oh,
Disney is fucking scary.
Wait,
that's what I'm
X-Men.
saying. Because
So X-Men wasn't under the umbrella of Disney already.
No, it's Fox.
Oh.
In the late 90s, Marvel was going bankrupt, and so they sold the movie rights to a lot of their superheroes. That's why the Avengers was started with relatively unknown at the time superheroes. Like, nobody before Iron Man, except comic book fans, really knew a lot about Iron Man. They knew he was a character, they knew he existed, but like, he wasn't a popular character before the first movie in 2008.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of the same thing with Captain America. I mean, he's Captain America, so everybody knew about him, but very few people were like legitimately interested outside of the comic book community.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, where, like, I don't know, either one of you, like, where do you think, not where you want to see it go, but where do you think it would actually go
I don't know.
with those kids? Because it's so strange, because they're literally just kids, so it's like, thinking about how...
I think it'd be a totally unrelated story. Like, it's like 2 or 3 years in the future, they're a little bit more mature. I don't think it would be a continuation of this story. I think it'd be the same characters, and like, it would just be like, they're older, and then a totally new, unrelated problem shows up, and they have to deal with it.
Yeah, because there'd be no need to kind of bring in that...
The Ravagers or anything?
Yeah.
Like, no. Like,
It's
oh,
like-
we were...
It'd be dated at that point, and it's just...
And so, as far as theme goes, what do you guys think this movie touched on? I think the excerpt from the movie Shane really sums it up. It's like a man has to be what he is and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's the opposite of that. Like, I think that's the idea that Logan is fighting the whole movie. And at the end, I think he does overcome that,
Mm-hmm.
He becomes more than what he is. He's not, like, he's not just a killer because, like, he's not just destroying. Like, yeah, at the end, he, like, goes on a rampage and starts slaughtering people. But it's to protect
Yes,
his
for the
daughter
purpose.
and protect these kids.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's to what's it called? To protect this thing that's like
It's
the
preserve
sanctity
that,
of these people's future. So I think at the end of the day, he does overcome that. Aside from obviously Shane being in there, did you guys notice the really heavy Western elements of the movie?
With the main antagonist, Just looking on his.
Doesn't matter. Ravager number 1.
Ravager number 1 that like you see when he's speaking to Logan in the limousine. He just kind of has that old like
That's the
Western
southern
drawl.
drawl.
Yeah, and it's just like okay.
Yeah. Also, it's in the desert, right?
Yeah.
That's pretty Western. But also, the road trip element of it, just kind of like the feeling of isolation and like there's no, like they're not literally isolated, but nobody's coming to help them. They're on their own. They are the law out here, or at least, or the law's not coming to help. You know?
Yeah.
I really like that it was filmed in Texas and not just like another. I mean, like even the parts where they were in like a city, it was more like a Texan city.
Yeah. See, no.
Are you trying to
Texan.
are you trying to generalize the good old folk of Texas?
No, I love Texas.
No.
Texas is great. We took a
Yeah.
road trip around Texas.
was
It was a
great.
good time.
I love Austin.
I do know what you mean, like with the city. Like even though there's a city, it does seem very just like,
Like Western,
it seems
yeah.
very isolated from everything else.
Yeah.
Like even though there are more people interacting, because in normal, I guess superhero movies, there's always that element of like, oh, we've always got our partners that we can call up for help or something.
Yeah.
And now that's not there.
No.
Like
not at all.
you're on your own. If you feel very alone, and you can just sense that the whole movie, and it makes me sad.
Yeah, it's like, and not even like, are they practically alone, but they're like kind of thematically alone in that they're really the last mutants. Like, there's, imagine being the last Hispanics, man.
Or like the was the last Mohican.
The last Mexican.
Mexican. Oh my
Oh
god.
my god.
Yeah, it's like
This isn't even really a joke. The Native Americans.
yeah, it's funny because it's like.
Is it funny? It's a national tragedy. We
Sorry.
should all be ashamed of how we treated
it's
them.
Like, I think people get confused when I say it's funny. When I say it's funny, I mean more. This is interesting.
Like it's
not
like it's Shakespearean type funny.
Yeah, it's just it's trash.
Moment of silence.
Yeah.
Moment of silence for the entire culture that we wiped off the map.
I don't know how we turned that corner.
I don't know either.
We just had to do it.
It's we don't know how to deal with tragedy, so
Yeah, I think that's the best way to deal with tragedy is, just smile.
like this is like who's trying to confront that?
Was that how you dealt with Logan in the theater? You were like.
Yeah, a little
awkward
bit.
smile.
A little bit. There's tears running down my face. Yeah, what's wrong with you?
It's not tears or wiper fluid.
Anything else? Closing thoughts. Let's go.
Not the best movie of 2017. I don't know where I was going.
I thought you were gonna be like.
Someone say something else, and then I'll come back to my thing.
All right. Well, I think it's a great fucking movie, and you should watch it, and you should watch it with somebody else so you can cry together, and then
Hold each other
Or
tight
maybe not, so you don't get embarrassed. When you
Hey
cry.
man,
in the night
real grown-ups
when it's
cry.
cold and you need some warmth.
Speaking of.
Oh my god, yeah.
Really great movie. Enjoyed the action. The sadness was real, and so am I.
Okay.
Like you're real sad or you're real?
Either way, you can take it either way, however you want.
I agree with you. The action was really good, and it was good.
Great. All right. Thanks for watching, guys. So I hope you liked our Hugh Jackman double feature, right? I think Hugh Jackman is an American gem, even though he is Australian. But I petition that we claim him as our own and
He is an
rob
American-
Australia
I
of one of the
only
only
Yeah, seriously.
and rob Australia of one of the only good role models that they have.
Hold on.
Russell Crowe?
Heath Ledger.
He's Australian?
Yeah.
Oh.
Okay. Catch us out next week while we continue our run through. If you guys haven't noticed, we're kind of running through all the potential Oscar nominations and whatnot. Just because I feel like it's gonna be very relevant. The Oscars are in March, and we're coming up on them pretty quick. So hopefully we can provide you guys with a crash course on all things film 2017, or at least all good things film.